is up, Mr. Man? Episode
Oh,
3,
not much.
Underdorks. I think it's episode 3, right? Or is it episode 4?
Three for the new.
Yeah, 3,
Well, it's three
okay.
for the campaign.
Yeah, because we
Technically,
have
like,
been in VC but not recorded anything. That's right. Because this week's session. But I wasn't coherent most of the time because I was like falling asleep. What happened last week?
well, we should talk about the week before that first because we're
Oh
two
yeah,
out.
that's right. Okay. Never mind. All right, so let's start 2 weeks ago.
Yes, 2 weeks ago we had the session where things were coming to a head. As I'd said the episode before, something was off with the crew of the ship. People were acting strangely, threw out a few red herrings as to who could be at fault, and then last week came up.
Yeah, that's
At
right.
the end of the week before that, I had set it up where Captain Withers had said that the next person that tries to screw with Andromeda in any way was going to be whipped. So when we opened up the next session, I continued that on. At this point in time, they've circumnavigated the entire island, and they're basically coming back to where they began. From this point on, they have to pick a spot to actually settle down. They're running out of supplies, so they're going to have to go ashore. And while they're ashore, it's probably the best time for whoever's going to try to do something to do it. Half the soldiers have to go to the land, and half the sailors have to go to the land to get to do the foraging and carry everything back. So at that time, Andromeda will be at her most vulnerable.
Yeah.
One of the characters overhears the two of the crew members talking about Indeed having a go at Andromeda, like raping her, and they know that it's just a matter of time until something happens. So then that came along during that episode or during that part. Andromeda's player did a couple key things that basically sealed the deal and ensured that his character was going to be raped. Opening of that one, I said one of the guys palmed her ass. He got busted, and Withers, man of his word, doesn't matter if the word is good against bad or against his own crew, upholds it. So
Yeah.
that session, I make a speech as Withers, say, I will do what I said.
I heard you
And
talk in that voice. So
yeah,
that's what you were doing. Okay. Okay.
the Frenchy voice. So he's gonna do what he says. He has the quartermaster ready to whip. Um, Andromeda's player, sorry, it's a little foggy, but he makes a check for some reason I can't remember, and he rolls a 20 on it. And in my head, I took it as far as it could go. So in his action that he did, and it was pretty noble, I said that he ended up winning the quartermaster's respect. But what I didn't tell him is that Withers witnessed the whole thing because he did it right in front of him, and he sees the change in his quartermaster as well. Or sorry, not quartermaster, first
Man, I
mate.
got a
I mean,
question. You got a new mic, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, because it fucking is clear as day, boy. I tell you. Let me turn you down
I
a
like
little bit. I was looking at the levels. I'm like, why is that yellow? That doesn't look right to me. And I
Yeah,
forgot I
pretty
had you
down
at full blast and boosted. But
and proper. So he is about to whip the guy. He has the first mate do it, as is his job. He's about to lay the first lash when, for some reason, Andromeda's player is like, "No, I want to lash the guy." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have my player do it." I'm like, "Well, this is not protocol. You're gonna have to make some sort of check to do it." So he makes a diplomacy check. Withers relents because now he knows this chick is sealing the deal, and it's gonna be even easier for him to do what he wants to do, which is have her
yeah.
himself, right? So this sealed the deal for him. I was like, well, there's no
People
coming
that are
back for this.
listening to this
Tell him.
should know that they everyone understands that this is just a game also, like the listeners.
Oh yeah,
So when
we're
this shit
almost to that
happens,
point.
yeah, I just wanted to foretell, because I know there's going to be people that are going to be like, why the fuck are you guys talking about this? Did no one have a problem with it, you weirdos? The
Well, we
internet's
talked
the
about it.
internet. So
We did talk about the potential for it last episode.
yes, we
It's
did.
just now he ensured that it was going to happen with those actions. And not because I say so, because I'd say that Captain Withers says so. This woman has now interfered with him trying to discipline his own shipmates. He now has her whipping one of his own guys. So when it comes to swaying his crew to do something against her, it's going to be super easy for him. Be like, this bitch wanted to wanted to whip you. She hates men so much. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
So he has this in his mind. So Andromeda
It's
whips the
it's
guy.
really good
I mean,
incel energy buildup. Like before,
it
like
is
because in this world,
incel.
incel is not a thing, but it's that energy where like one thing happens to them by a female, and that resentment is just extreme.
Well,
So
they're not involuntary.
this is intentional. Yeah, this was intentional. Like just the
It's
personality
intentional.
and the incel behavior. I mean, that's a
Well,
pretty
it's more
smart call.
unintentional because if there was pussy around, they'd be hitting it.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just
that's
not
true. That's
around,
true. Or
whether
they'd be
by hook
trying
or
to.
crook. Yeah, and that actually that we'll touch upon how that is in the end of this. So, whips him, seals the deal. A bunch of background stuff happens. I have a point where Sverg, the gnome who was Boulder in the last one, Sverg has an option. He sneaks out and overhears exactly what's going to happen to Andromeda, and he hears a few details about when. With this knowledge in hand, he tries to go directly to tell them, and I hit him with the choice, a pivotal choice, one that's going to make it to the book. He has to
Hell yeah,
decide what
brother, to the book.
oil.
Sorry.
He is just about to go back, and he's intercepted by Master Brown. To this point, Master Brown's been a bit shady. 3 of the 4 people are convinced he's up to no good. I know what he's up to. And Zverg is kind of on the fence. He doesn't know. It's his master. He wants to believe the best, but he's caught him doing a couple shady things, like overhearing, or he was listening at Withers' window, like eavesdropping. So Master corners him, says, "Hey, let's come in. And we got to talk. Serious stuff's happening." Basically, I tell him, "You have a choice now. You either go with the Master, or you say, 'No, I have something more important,' and you go do that." So he mulls it over for a couple minutes, which is not really like him, so I could tell he was actually taking the decision seriously. And he looks at me, he's like, "I'll go with my
Shout out
master."
to your party for being like, loyal and immersive.
Oh, they do. Well, he had to decide. He's like, "No, I'm going to be loyal to my master," because he doesn't suspect anything as a character, but as a player, he knows I'm up
Well,
to
they're
something.
dedicated and immersed, and like, you guys can get into these really dark subjects because of just how close you guys are. And, many D&D groups now are online, so there's not really that like close ties thing. Like you can build close ties with someone online, but when you're only meeting up once a week, it's hard to do that. So like, you're one of the few people that actually have a group of friends that can play, and then everyone's loyal to each other, and I like
Oh,
that.
yeah, can you going? Absolutely. Our Tuesday track record is amazing. So he takes the decision to go with his master. Master brings him in. Long story short, the master drugs him. He passes out. He is not able to warn them about the attack. If he'd have actually made the other decision, I would have given them a chance to escape. That would have changed
Oh,
everything. But he
damn.
did not. He
That
got
is
knocked out.
pivotal.
Yeah, it is pivotal, right? Because then he wouldn't have got raped and
Like, you
he'd have
say
known that it
pivotal, and
was
people are like, oh, like, it's kind of
well, it is
unavoidable,
pivotal.
but it's like, no, like, if you had avoided this thing, your life would be, like, 100% completely different. It's
And I didn't
crazy.
give him a saving throw either. It was Deus Ex Machina. I just said, if he takes this decision, this happens. If he takes this decision, this happens.
That's how you
He
got
took
to
the one
run
that
it, man.
that's
Black or
it.
white.
Not only that, I forbid him from helping or saying anything to the rest of them for the rest of the session because his character was technically knocked out. It's like you had your chance. You didn't fuck it up. You did the right thing in the end. You did what you think your character would do, which is listen to your master. And you had no idea he was going to drug you and knock you out. So what he did for the rest of the session was he just worked on his spell book and listened, but did not offer help like he normally would. Even when he was asked, he just made an excuse. So that was his contribution. And I felt bad because he literally only got to play for like 15 minutes and then he got knocked out. But
Yeah,
he's good.
dude.
And he went along with it and he'll get his comeuppance. Or not comeuppance. He'll get his repayment for that.
Yeah.
Before he got knocked out, though, his master revealed to him that he's always considered him like a son, and he left everything to him. And then he left him a letter, and then that letter he sealed and put on the table beside him because he didn't know if he was going to come back from what he was doing. And I told you last time I was going to kill Brown, so yes, this is the part where Brown gets killed. He gets killed heroically, though. Doesn't make a difference, but I mean, he tried. So now we'll accelerate to that part.
It's
Um,
like, buddy tried. Who fucking cares?
Oh, he did try though, and I'll
I
get to
know.
why
I just like
it
how
was meaningless and it
dismissive
was.
you really are about it.
Well, it's a story. So, previously, In the other one, I also mentioned that two of the crew members went missing. They just went up missing. They didn't know if they were killed or they jumped ship or what, but two of them go missing. So this is from last session, and then this will come back. Um, from this point on, the pirates go. They're not the pirates. The ship guys. Well, not pirates yet. Ship guys go ashore, and now it's the dangerous point that I was talking about. Sure as shit, things start happening. I allow the remaining ones to be taken over by Mitra, who has picked his new name, but sorry, I can't remember it right now, and I don't have my book in front of me. But Mitra is basically leading. He sets guys on the very top of the boat, in the middle of the boat, and then one by Andromeda's door, and she's staying with Matthew, who stays aboard as well. I get to the point where, of course, something has to happen, so I say Matthew needs to take a piss. What are you going to do? They say I'll have a guy escort him to the top. That guy is Eldero, the elf. So Eldero, the Elven Ranger, takes him to the top deck. While Matthew's taking a piss, I have the man who has the best spot check in the group make a spot check, and through the fog, in which I said it was a foggy morning, just to again set the tone. Through the fog, I say he makes out a silent ship approaching from the opposite side of the island, which means it's either came way around or further out there is another bigger ship that has landing ship, which is what it is. So those two guys that dropped off, they actually ended up staying behind and then allowing this other ship to catch up and letting the pirates aboard that ship know what was going on. So
Ooh.
now they witness these 10 men plus those two guys that jump ship now trying to stealthily approach. Because he made the spot check, he sees them approach. They're not totally taken off guard. He manages to grab Matthew, pull Matthew with his dick still in his hand and piss him down his legs, back away from the edge before a crossbow bolt takes him. Every single guy on the boat has a crossbow,
Ooh,
a
shit.
heavy crossbow to boot. That's a D10 of damage. They're only level ones. I stress the fact that they can die in one shot from these. Don't fuck around. So these guys are coming
I
up.
remember
Now what
you
do you guys
telling people to, I quote, not fuck around.
Yeah, don't fuck around when it's time. When I tell you don't fuck around, I mean don't fuck around. You do heroics, you're gonna die.
Because like you
Not
do the games
time
kind of
for heroics, but
later,
not
so I'll be falling
yeah.
asleep listening, and then it's like, don't fuck around.
It's true though. So anyway, so now they have a choice. Mitra pulls everyone back to the hallway, figures that's the best way. In the meantime, the trap is sprung. Withers comes out and shows his true colors. He decides to become a pirate. He tells them from his post with every single. So now I have to lay out the odds. Currently, there are 5 Northlander bodyguards, plus Andromeda, plus Matthew, plus the halfling, who's Mitra, plus the elf, who's Eldero. That's it. That's 9 people. Yeah, 9 people. From there, they are taken on by 10 men, so that plus the other two, so that's 12. There's 10 more now revealed as pirates, so that's 22 people versus 9, plus Withers. Now, there are laborers as well, but as far as Withers is concerned at this point in time, when he lays out his true agenda, he just
Yeah.
doesn't consider them. He's like, whatever, they're laborers, they're going to be taken care of in his mind. He had them distracted,
See,
it was
that,
what he thought.
yeah, that
So,
works. Like, that personality
yeah,
just works
like,
so
fuck
well
these
because
laborers kind of
it's like, all right, you
deal.
fucking lemmings, get the fuck out of my way. Get out of my office. I don't want to hear your noise. It's like, sir, fire, fire, fire. It's like, I'm on the phone. Leave me alone. Just because that's his
I
personality.
got this. Go
Yeah,
away.
it's like literally gunman's walking in the room shooting at him, and he's like, "I'm on the fucking phone. Go back to work." you
So,
know,
oh yeah, I know. So he
like
gives them an
say,
ultimatum. He says, "You guys all don't have to die. I just want the girl. If you bring her out to me, then I will let you go on the boat that just arrived." He had no intention of doing that. He would have had the other boat kill them, but as far as he's concerned, they don't know this. He says, "Yeah, you could take the boat. You can go away. I'm going to keep that apprentice and Brown, but the people that are currently protecting her, you can take this boat and go. Just leave me the girl." So they pretend to go along with this. So Mitra goes on his own. He tries to hide in shadows because he's a halfling. His intention is to try to assassinate the Captain Withers from the shadows.
yeah,
So he takes off on his own. The elf holds the girl like he's going to attack her, and they hide Andromeda's weapons behind them. So one of them carries the weapon, but it doesn't look like her weapon because she uses a spear, and nobody's seen her use the spear yet because he's been very careful about his whether revealing or whether or not she can use weapons. So one of them has a spear. So their plan is to hopefully break out. But I've already stressed there's 22 guys against them, and it's not looking
Yeah.
good. So really, they're kind of seeing what's happening, and they're trying to
I
lessen the
would
collateral they
I,
see.
personally, I would only make that like try to escape call where like you could butter up with like some workers there, but not really escape, but kind of like finagle, like some favoritism, some like let me out of this area and hang out in like the break room with y'all type stuff. Like give me some privileges, is what I'm thinking of. Like I would have tried to done that and then you know
Okay. Well,
convince some other prisoners to try to like escape a riot and then like kind of just set it up to where the potential escapees, they get because you and your meddling, not you but the parties
yeah.
could swing it to where that's the distraction, and then like you help the guards like uncover a breakout plot, and then you guys just break out because you have privilege. Oh
Well,
no,
they're
you know what I mean? Like that's just a quick like scheme in my head I would try to do.
Well, they did try a scheme. They did try bluffing him. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they did try to talk him into doing something. And again, Withers is much higher level than them, and he's actually quite an accomplished pirate because he tricked all these people to get to this point. So he was just like, "No, man, you do this, and that's that." And then I gave them a real world time limit of 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, you have to make a decision. You have 2 minutes to discuss what you're going to do, and in that time, I'm going to go ahead with what I'm going to do. So in that 2 minutes, they came up with that bluff. The bluff failed. Now I'm like, okay, you have to give in. So they're about to give in, and then Brown arrives. Brown arrives with all the laborers. They show up on the other side of the ship, and now the odds are even. He has the 10 laborers plus the blacksmith. That's 11, plus Brown is 12. So now the odds are even. Brown stands on top of the
Yeah.
box. This is his proudest moment. He stands above them all. Now
And
remember, he
then
hasn't said a fucking word till now.
falls
He
over.
tried to do it. And they all were like, what? Because they all thought Brown was a bad guy, because I kind of set him up that way because he was acting all suspicious.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
really, he's
That's the
never
whole
done
point
this
of
stuff
just being
before.
suspicious as shit. So that breeds like mistrust immediately with some people, and then others, it's like, huh, I like you.
Well, he's an academic though, so he was really bad at the stealthy stuff he was trying to do.
Yeah.
So this is someone out of their element trying to be heroic, and he pays for it when he stands
Take
on
back
top
my
of one of the
compliment.
yardarms or things. He's like, "You thought you had us, Withers, and I'll show you." And I made a big speech for him, and then an arrow takes him in the head, and he falls off on the box, stock dead. As all the pirates and the guys who went to shore arrive back there. And now the odds are against them again, because now it is about 36 to about 20. So I'm like, you guys lose. You need to accept this. They all looked at each other. Okay, so from this point on, it's just clean up. It took the whole session to get to the point where Withers wins. So I said, this is the aftermath of what happens. Half the laborers are killed for the transgressions. So that's 5 laborers down out of the 10. Every single one of the Northlanders are killed, except Nathan's, who went to the island to keep the order. And what happened on the island that they don't know is that they hear through the crew that Nathan's escapes. For those who don't remember, Nathan's is the leader of the Northlanders, the head bodyguard of Matthew. He is an old timey English gentleman from the old world Bretonia, one of the last
Hell
of his breed.
yeah.
Hell of a fighter. He can
Oh,
beat three
they
or four
say
men by
that's Southern.
yeah, if you know of Game of
What?
Thrones, Sir Bertram, that Sir Bertram guy, I think his name is, the one who goes with Jory to see that fucking dumb dragon bitch or whatever. He goes to fight for her after Joffrey fires him from the head of the guards. That guy, that kind of like fighter, old time mentality, that's him. So he manages to slay a few of them, and they don't tell Captain Withers that they didn't kill him, they just ran away from him and left him there with nothing except for the couple dead bodies while they went back to the thing, and then they ended up killing Brown and helping take over the ship. So Nathan's is still at large. They just leave him behind. They had all the stuff on the boats they wanted anyway. They strand him there and take off. So the odds really are truly against them. So I'm like, you guys are fucked. But I lay out that Nathan's is still alive, and here's what happens. All laborers are killed, all Northlanders are killed except for the player party. The elf is kept alive because Withers realizes that he is a very valuable asset.
Oh
The
yeah.
elf proved himself by finding everything in those settlements. If it wasn't for Eldarrow's amazing stats, and amazing character building, they wouldn't have found all the information they did, and thus he made himself valuable to Withers. On the reflect side, the reason the halfling gets to live is, as I said, he was trying to assassinate, and this is Mitra. Mitra tried to assassinate Withers. He pops up off the boxes. I let him take his shot. He misses. He takes his nightly reroll, misses,
Oh,
takes
that's
it like a
right.
man.
If
Okay, I
anybody
guess
doesn't know, they have Mr. Man has a nightly reroll once per session, kind of like
for each
yeah,
person.
for each person. So it's kind of like your once per day or once per encounter spell, but
Correct.
it's a reroll if
Reroll.
shit is too fucked. And it's funny
One
when
day.
they get a fucked roll and then their nightly reroll is even more fucked.
Yeah, and it happens once in a while.
I
So on
you
this
talked
point,
about it
I
like
didn't roll.
fucking before the reboot.
Yes, I did. And yeah. So he takes his nightly reroll. It doesn't pull it off for him. So he throws the dagger or whatever the hell. I think yeah, he threw a dagger at Withers, lands and he flings a dagger at him, and it lands in a mast, we'll say, right behind him, and stands there vibrating for a second. And Withers looks over at it, looks at the halfling. You got balls, halfling. You got balls, because he's that kind of bad guy, right? He
Yeah,
sees people in value, so he allows the halfling to live because he has balls. That's the reason he said, though, that's the one you get. Says you cross me again, you die. The other reason he keeps the halfling alive is because the halfling and the elf have been the ones hanging out with Andromeda, and he knows what he's about to do to Andromeda. So he needs Andromeda to have a couple people to help her through it after he's done doing what he's going to do to her. He's very analytical in that sense. So now the end comes. So up until this point, the player for Andromeda has thought he is going to somehow get out of this unscathed. He thought he'd be able to fight death. He thought he'd be able to do many, many things. And he's finding out the cold, hard reality of life that when you're a woman on her own and the odds are against you, you're alone, like
yeah.
truly alone.
And
So
it
he
sucks
has,
on that road. That
yeah,
realization like borders existential because it's like I'm alone in this plane of existence is how it feels, or
yeah.
how it could be in reality in some instances.
So at this point, I just try to gloss it over because I don't enjoy this. It's not a fucking rape fantasy kind of deal. There's no talk of the details. It basically what I said is what I'm going to say verbatim right now.
Pretty much what you
Withers
said last
has
week.
you, and this is what I say to Andromeda's player. Withers has you strapped to the mainmast with your ass hanging out and strips you bare. He has the entire crew watch, every laborer, every man. He whips anyone who doesn't watch. He himself watches. He lets the quartermaster have a go at you, and the man that whipped you have a go at you. He himself does not touch you. The guy that you whipped has a blast doing it, puts his hands up, does his thing, doesn't like it. Quartermaster, or no, I keep calling him quartermaster, the fucking first mate, he does it as well. The first mate is shocked when he is allowed to do it, but he doesn't argue with his captain. Now, the logic behind this is, as I said before, Andromeda won his respect. Withers witnessed this. In order to drive a wedge between them so they don't conspire against him because he needs the first mate and he needs Andromeda, he makes the first mate rape her so that there's no fucking way in his mind they will ever cooperate from that point forward. It's cold,
Yeah,
hard, but
it's
it's logical, and that's the way he
yeah,
is. He
it
has
is
the
logical and it sucks and
yeah,
it just leaves a
and it's
sour
real
taste in
life.
my mouth. Yeah,
Yeah, and it should leave us out. It's disgusting,
it's
but
yeah,
it's
it's what
real.
happens in war and
Real life.
traveling and in the
Man, rape
darkness.
used to be the reward you got. You used to go to get rape as your payment. So, I mean, that's horrible, but that is what it is. And this is that kind of time period, that kind of mentality. We don't have the luxury of our current law enforcement system there. And it's not like every bitch in the fucking world's going to get raped on Perennia, but you don't have the protection that a PG-13 fantasy world would have. You are on your fucking own. Plain and simple. This is Game of Thrones, not fucking Dragonlance, right? Although in
Yeah.
Dragonlance they kind of touch on that shit too. But the point is, I'm going for real. I want to write books about this, and that's how it ended up being. Now, this is the end of that session. There's a bit of drama,
Last week.
IRL drama
Yeah.
that Fallout. I let you know about this. I don't want to get into it because these people are my personal friends, and
I already
nobody's
thought of
real
a
business.
TLDR for it, and it's pretty much so when
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
rape was brought up, outside people it didn't sit well with them, so you know
Yes.
it had to be a little bit changed a little bit.
there were people. Well, it was going to be changed and didn't have to be.
Oh,
So, right? Because what happened was, so this happened. Andromeda's player did not take it well. He is out of all four players. I can say this, and
very
every one of them
worst.
will agree with me. He cares more about his fucking character than all three other of them would care
Shit,
about
I
their
would.
characters
I do
combined.
for my
He
MMO
loves his
characters.
characters. Yeah, no matter who they are, he puts his heart and soul in these characters. And to him, this is just, he really took it like she would take it, to his credit. He took it seriously. Unfortunately, he took it too seriously. And he'd already had a rough day IRL. And the point we play these games for is to escape reality and have a good time. And here I did, I kind of shit on him a bit. I didn't shit on him in the sense that I went out to do it. It was what I did for the game, but it's not what he wanted. And I've been in this situation before as a player, which I won't get into right now, maybe another time. So I could really feel for him. So yeah, I just raped his character essentially. Like I didn't want to, but that is the long and the short of it.
Change that
So
to
he didn't
gang
take it
rape
well.
because there's more than one.
Yes, correct. Technically gang rape because there were two. Nobody else. Everybody else got to watch though. And again, I've already explained my reasons for doing all this. Civilization, number one reason amongst them for the survivors, and then he wanted to get his own guys up, like raise their morale. So he killed two birds with one stone. So
Exactly.
end of the night comes along,
Put a
that
woman in
happens.
her
I go
place.
home, and then I bring one of the players with me, and I happen to mention it to one of that player's people, and they don't take it very well, and that kind of made his life difficult, and I felt bad about it. And fortunately, it was just a one night thing, and it wasn't a recurring thing. But yeah, that went awry. Like we did not. I just explained what happened at the game, and it went way off the rails after that. So that's what that was, and that's all I'll say about it.
And I also
And then the
think it
other
was
way
less
was,
understanding of how D
yeah,
and D roleplay also works,
they
or how this
absolutely
would
had
work.
no idea. Yeah, they took it to the furthest extreme of what you could be and blew it way out of proportion. And fortunately, it was the one night thing. And again, that's all I want to mention on it.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to talk more about was how it affected the player. So how it affected the player was I could tell, and I did not want to, and I felt fucking horrible about it. And I'd been so jacked to do it. In my mind, it's so far removed from reality. I just can't relate enough to a point that I could take it seriously enough to be upset by it.
Well, you're
But
the
he did,
dungeon master.
and it was my bad. I should have been better. Anyway, so I gave him an alternative because like the next day when I woke up, I was like, I slept on it like I usually do for things I want to really think on. So I slept on it, woke up with the same thing in mind, texted him. I said, look, I'm not out to ruin your good time. How about we do this instead? We'll just we'll PG-13 it. I know I just said I didn't want to do that, but for my friend, I will. And then when I write the book, I'll just kind of tweak it a bit. I'll fucking change it. Retcon. So I said, this is what we'll do instead.
I want
We'll
to
just
reply
cut out
because
the
I was
gang rape
muted.
part. Oh, no worries. I'll just I'll cut out the part with the gang rape at the end,
Mhm.
and instead Withers will do what the old timey bad guys did, and he said, "I will take you, and I will make you love me." Like the old villain thing, where if he figures he'll wear them down through kindness, it'll never happen. But
I
he's
want this to be a
he's
lesson to
stupid on
dungeon
that kind of
masters. Also, you are there for your party, not for your own fantasy or game. So
fuck no.
when a player like the issue you had, you usually have no compromises. You run it how you want to run it, but you was willing to go PG-13 for your friend. Even though it
Yes,
didn't
and
go that way, it's loyalty to your party, or I would say your friends, but to your party
friends.
versus the actual game. And that's what I've read creates like a good dynamic and reoccurring players. So I just
Well,
wanted to throw that out
it
there for
worked out.
anybody that's listening, that's new to tabletop
Okay.
or are fucking retards that actually don't know this.
What's up? Yeah, we're trying to like I want you to know everybody involved with this, not
Yeah,
you and everyone listening, so you understand because the players make the characters, and you need to kind of understand both of them to get the full view. So in this case, yes, I gave him that option, and later on that day, like he did not talk to me. And this is
yeah,
a
we
man
were
usually
talking
we
about
get back
that.
to each other quite fast, and he did not get back to me at all that day, and I was quite worried
I was
because I
worried
was like,
for you, man. I could tell how
yeah,
you were
man.
typing.
So
It
then
kind of bug you.
next day comes along and he just basically, I won't give you the exact response, but he
Yeah.
was like, look, it touched too much on IRL. You had no way of knowing it was IRL related. So yes, I will take this option that you gave me, and thank you for the option. He was really good about it. I was like, thank God, everything is cool. So That day passed. Another day passes. Get another text from him. Hey man, I know I should have slept on it. I should have mulled it over. But he's like, I actually want to go ahead with the gang rape. I feel like it would be a good opportunity to character develop and see how she can come back from this. And yeah, I just want to change my mind. I'm like, cool, man. In my mind, I kind of want to see it like the girl with the dragon tattoo. That's the closest thing I can relate
Getting
this to.
gang raped is a
Where it's
great way
not
to
about the
network.
rape necessarily, it's about the journey of the woman who comes back. And that was actually the point, too, where I realized my first book's going to be about a broad. It's
And
like,
if
holy
people
shit.
seen what we say in chats,
Yeah,
just as
yeah,
humor, oh my god, that is,
yeah. That's
you know,
funny. Anyone
people
who
that,
knows me would think that's funny. And it's
that
not
is
that I
funny.
hate women. I love women to death. I
It's
just
just a
don't feel
joke.
women are suited for certain things. So for me to have women in a pretty manly role in an adventure game, I mean, yeah. So
But
that
also,
occurred to
she doesn't also ever have to be like a big hero either.
me.
Because I like stories where it's you are just a dude enlisted and help do something great, and the journey, the message, even if she didn't end up like surviving the story, the journey would be of her overcoming and defeating fear, and going out on her own terms like a warrior, being known forever. Like shit like that. So there's for anybody listening, there's other ways than always having a happy ending. Also, as your stories don't always ever have happy endings. It's
No,
always
and
like
like I
fucked
said,
with more fucked on the side. It just depends on how fucked you want to get or what kind of
well,
fucked you
Brown
want.
didn't have a happy ending, and Matthew ends up getting killed as well. So now they're down two
Rip
main
Matthew.
NPCs, and
Rip
Nathan's
Matthew.
is stuck on the island. But you'll also notice, like I said, that now everybody in the party has a true reason for being in a position of power. With Brown's death, Verg, yes,
Yeah.
Verg, no, G, Verga. Sorry, I'm trying to get his name.
Oh,
It's
you're
such a
good.
pain in the ass to get his name right because it's German. It means gnome in German. So Zverg is now the head. Yeah, he's so awesome. Boulder cracks me up. But Zverg. So Zverg, he is now the head botanist because the other botanist took an arrow to the head. So he has a reason to be there. With the demise of five of the or
Is
with all the
he?
Northlanders, they don't have anybody who has survival skills
He
because now
grows
it's been
drugs,
revealed
don't
they're
he?
all pirates. Well, yeah, they're all pirates. They don't know anything. So the point is, they all now have a reason for being there. Andromeda's there because she's
That's
the
right.
only one who
You
knows
that
how.
that was a struggle is trying to make sense of everyone getting together, and we were talking
Yes,
about that before we even like when we were just doing a brainstorming sesh. I
correct.
remember
And
now.
that's why we brainstorm because I take a lot of the stuff we talk about the brainstorm and try to apply it. No point in talking about it if I don't fucking use the ideas.
That's true.
So yeah, so we ended up at the end of that session. Yeah, so then he texted me back the next day after that. He actually went online. He did some research and he decided how he felt because there's different ways it can affect women. So he went to like the women's mental health thing. And honest to God, like he put, this is what I wanted though. I would love nothing more. And this is so far removed from reality. But imagine abroad, grab my book, read my book about a strong woman getting through something that she herself somehow made it through and it helped her out. Who knows? It's never happened, but that type of stuff is what drives people to want to explore that thing. Like he'd have never looked into that, I think, that in depth until it had happened to him in a game. And now he probably knows more about rape than any person in that party. And he could help a woman in real life more effectively than I could or anyone else would.
Yeah,
So
it's
he comes up with these ways. He texts me how he wants to handle social interactions. Now, till this point, I wasn't going to reveal to him because I try to keep everything tight to the chest. But the guy that raped him ends up getting killed. I will tell you, and this is a spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't want to know the story. So, one, two, three, spoiler. That's all the fucking warning you get. The guy that gang raped her gets killed because secretly Withers is in love with her, and he cannot stand the fact that another man touched her. So he killed that guy, Withers himself. I've left. I let the in the last session, I let the characters know that the that guy ends up disappearing that night. So he rapes her, he makes a big deal out of it, and then the next morning they find him face down in the water outside. Nobody knows who did it. I'm telling you, it was Withers. So yeah, but that's going to be a
with the
mystery that the characters
candlestick.
have to find out. Yeah, oh yeah, exactly, like a clue.
Withers with a
So the quartermaster,
candlestick in the laundry room.
Well, the first mate gets to live until he doesn't need to live anymore. And then he's going to die too when it's convenient for Withers. And then nobody else gets to touch his woman ever again. He is that kind of crazy, insane, jealous man. He is a
Yeah.
he's a basket of emotions. He
Those
is going to
dudes,
be
even in
lawful.
fiction, give me goosebumps. Those like, if I
They
can't
do.
have you, no one will, dudes. Or the, yeah, whether it's like the I
Oh, yeah.
can't have you, no one else can. Whether they're the virgins or the ex-boyfriends, those dude make my like skin crawl, man. It's, sorry.
So do you remember a movie from the no worries. Do you remember a movie from the 90s that had Mark Wahlberg in it and I believe Alicia Silverstone? And Mark Wahlberg was the crazy fucking jealous boyfriend. You ever see that movie?
Who's
It doesn't ring
actress?
any bells, probably not. Mark Wahlberg and Alicia Silverstone, and he's some crazy, like crazy jealous boyfriend. He ends up almost killing one of the guy that
God,
likes
he's
her,
so
but
young
he'll.
in this.
Yes,
And
okay. So what's the
fear,
movie called?
fear.
And thank you. So yeah, so that is how Mark Wahlberg acts in that movie is kind of what I'm drawing upon for this, where it's no problem in his mind. He can go fuck anything that moves, but anything that touches his old lady, no, that doesn't
Yeah.
work like that. He has to have fun, she doesn't. That dynamic, that fucking crazy contradiction is what makes people interesting. I don't want boring people. And he's already, and again from last session, you see he's playing both ends against the middle, constantly balancing, trying to keep things going. So that's basically where all
Manipulation,
that ends.
boredom.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a factor too. So now next session starts. So all this stuff has happened. I'm a little bit nervous before it starts. As
Yeah, I
usual, like
remember. I remember you were talking
we
about
kind of
how.
discuss it. So I didn't know what was up. Fortunately, fucking Andromeda's player was in a very good mood. He arrived. We'd already discussed it. He asked me not to tell the other players so that it would be more natural if he acted weird. I said, fucking no problem. I think that's more real as well.
Fucking
But like I said,
dedicated to the player. I are out like OOC also. Shout out to
well, yeah,
him, man.
but he wanted to keep it that way. But like I
I
said,
know
it was
this
irrelevant.
is
I
true
never explained why it was
dedication.
irrelevant.
You always gotta
Sorry, it
respect
was
that
relevant
shit.
because his triggers. So when it happens with some women, they don't feel safe until the person that raped them is dead. And
Yeah.
that is the stance that he was going to take. So why it was
Ooh.
irrelevant was I killed the one guy that did it. And then the other guy, again, I didn't tell them, but I said, that guy the day after, you'll notice that after a week, so 1 week passes, you haven't seen him. And if you have, he will not, and this is Andromeda's player, he will not make eye contact with you. He will not look at you. He said looked like he was having a good time when he had a go at you, but from this point on,
Scared
he
as
won't look
shit.
or have anything to do with you. This is because he feels guilty, and he is going to kill himself soon.
Good.
Probably 2 months in, I'm going to have him kill himself. He just can't bear the fact that he did this to
It's
her.
dark, realistic, and it's poetic justice. I mean, I'm
It
getting
is.
emotionally invested, like stressed out over fucking Andromeda, and we talked about this before the session, like, before the campaign. Really,
Oh, yeah, but
I'm still
so
stressed
that's
out
why it's
about it.
relevant. So both sources of them are going to die, and with those two, I mean, she's not better or anything like that.
Yeah.
But with those two sources gone, he doesn't have to do the disassociative state that would have resulted from them continually being around her. If apparently, and if I read this correctly, and if anyone knows more than me, apologize if I get it wrong, especially on something like this. Not stuff I'll apologize for much. But if those sources are removed, she can generally come back at it and have something with a semblance of a normal life. If she's made to sit around them all the time, she will disassociate herself from reality more and more so that she doesn't have to deal with the fact that these people that violated her. Now, to help her as well, along is they are not continually doing it to her. So that means that the odds of the dissociative state go down. And actually, as it stands,
I
since the one guy
definitely
died
understand the
the
dissociation
other guy's
disorder,
yeah, and the
or
other
even if
guy
it's
isn't gonna be
temporary.
around. Yeah, she'll be fine, is the gist. So
Yeah.
that ends that session and sets up the next session. I was a little bit nervous. Get there, he's in a good mood. We just head straight to settlement mode.
Also, we
I
should
wanted to
say
keep
that
the tone
Andromeda is
light.
not fine, but she's manageable because
I
the
mean the player. I
associative.
just mean the player.
Oh,
Andromeda herself, yes, definitely not okay. This is like the
well,
day
speaking
after.
like IRL, I got you. Okay, well that's good that he's cool and Because
Yeah.
obviously, those types of responses like show that someone's struggling with the past, and I'm glad they dealt with it in a way where, like we even talked about, like where it's like a creative maybe deal with the memory type thing, cathartic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope we got some
Catharsis is
catharsis out
part
of
of the
it.
reason we play.
Yeah, for sure.
Catharsis is the plural. Anyway. So yeah, so the next session comes along. We start out with he's got to pick a goddamn spot to put the settlement in. So now they've circumnavigated the island. The pirates shown his true colors. He reveals his plan to them like any good 80s or 60s, 70s, or 80s Bond villain should. I tell them everything as to why he's doing this. Because he is that egotistical and he knows they can't fucking go anywhere. So why not tell them everything? So he lays it out. He says, I'm going to be the new Pirate King. I have everything I need to make it. Basically, I'm modeling it on Port Royale. He's going to make a new Port Royale. He wants to have a pirate base. His plan is to get so well established here that it will cost Galdrin thousands of fucking dollars to go to war with him, and he's not going to attack their ships. He's going to stick with Sanctuarian, Northlander, and
Fuck
Fangorian.
him. Fuck him.
Yeah, but like he wants to not piss off Galdrin, and he's hoping that they'll just let the money that they spent on this settlement go in lieu of starting a war with the pirate. That's his hopes. So they are there to set
Gals
up a
are
pirate.
stubborn as shit. We know that.
So they went there thinking they were going to start a colony for Galdrin, but they end up starting a colony for pirates. I'm like, this is what you need to decide now, Andromeda. Do you want to pick the absolute best spot there to give him the best time at making this place, or are you going to try to sabotage him by picking a less than ideal place and hoping that the place goes under? So this is a decision that takes them about 25 to 30 minutes of real time to discuss and figure out what they want to do. They go out and have a smoke, come back in. All right, cool. We're going to pick the best spot. So they pick the best spot. There's a natural spot there that has so many fish that when you throw your nets over the edge and pull them back up, every single hole is full of fish, like the Bay of Fundy in Newfoundland kind of deal. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much fish. I'm like, if you build a colony right beside this, you have food basically established, and all you have to focus on from that point on is materials, exploration, anything but food, really. You got it covered. Now, be aware that people will get sick of fish eventually, but for now, you've got the biggest base covered. You could run a whole town off this, a very successful fishing village that could have all sorts of potential in the future. So he takes that spot. Then I give him a piece of paper, I put a scale on it, I draw the spot, and I say, now you're going, excuse me, in pencil with a pen, with this pencil and ruler, you're going to draw exactly where everything's going to be. I give him the buildings. So he has a main building where everything kind of takes place. Then he has a manor house for Withers, was going to be Matthews. Then he has 3 storage buildings that can be converted to whatever they want. So, for instance, one could be food storage, one could become a blacksmithy, and one could become a horseshoe place. Or, no, sorry, that was blacksmithy. Fucking weaponsmith or a bootsmith. You know what I mean? Like any profession in
Yeah.
the game, that's kind of it. So now it becomes a bit of an RTS. You build a building and you get access to the stuff in it,
And
which
that's
was
what
the
we was
point
talking about in the
before.
early days, for like the concept of D&D, but RTS. Like,
Yep.
but
So it's kind of like that, where they even have to get materials. So when I draw it, I draw literal tree icons, but as they build stuff, I'm erasing those tree icons. And when all the tree icons are gone off of that one view that I have, and I'll supply a picture of that view when it's done, because I'm making a map out of that view, and it will be the first city on my map period that I haven't built. It will be an entirely player-built city. He is putting everything exactly where he wants. I'm not really going to take any say in it. The spot he's got, I left a little island off about 50 feet offshore. I wanted to leave him an option. Is he going to put it? It's about 100 foot by 100 foot, so decent size. Like, does he want to put a little fort on there? Would he make it like a port where he could get further out into the water? Or will he make it into storage? Will he ignore it? So they're actually going to turn it into a lookout fort. So that's what he wants to do. So I gave him enough materials to build all of those buildings. That was what was in that giant ship that they took across. So now and that ship is built like a modern day APC, where the ship has a shallow draft on it. It can go right up to shore on a low tide, and then the front of it drops down, and all the buildings that I just described are pulled out. And all those buildings come modular, and you just put them together. The Carthaginians used to put ships together like that, so I see no reason that modular buildings shouldn't exist in this sort of timeline. So they pull all the modular ships out, and there you go. You have a settlement in a ship. Um, they do all that. He sets all that up. Then they have the first week, and he has that extra pirate ship now. So one of the first questions they asked is, do we still get a settlement ship? Because on my little piece of paper, I said you get settlement ships every 30 days. I said, yeah. They're like, well, aren't they going to notice this big giant ship? And I'm like, no, he has that extra pirate ship that he brought along. Do you get to ask for 3 professions worth of stuff to go get? And then this guy will go get it. And when he comes back, you ask him for the next set of 3 things. So they asked him for stuff for preserving meat. They asked for more fishing stuff, and they asked for fuck, I can't remember off the top of my head. A whorehouse. They want stuff for a whorehouse. No, no, they decided that after. They asked for a third thing, irrelevant at this point. He asked for 3 professions. They got their 3 professions. From this point on, they now have a bit of time to decide what else they want to do. I let them know that they are out of nails now. They had a certain amount of nails. They've now built a dock. They've enclosed the settlement with a wall, and they have all the buildings. Basically, he picked the Roman style, where he has a
Yeah,
square. He's divvied the square out into plots of land, and he's going to fill those plots of land in a very grid-like pattern, just like the Romans did. It's very close to what a Roman settlement would have
more
looked like.
bunker and defense than
Yep.
offense or tactical.
Yep. So they make a palisade wall around it, and that's what he uses up the majority of his nails and everything on. So I'm like, you can go find more nails. This is where it gets a bit
Are
like
they
an
doing
MMO.
adventures or anything to offset costs? Like, how are they making money? I know they were getting
That's no
bankrolled.
money. No,
No
well, they
money.
were. This was already paid for. The point of the settlement now is to make it self-sufficient. So that's what I'm getting to is they now are running out of a resource that they need. They need iron. They have a blacksmith. They have enough stuff. All they need to do is find some sort of iron ore. Well, that's where the adventure comes in. Now they have to go adventure for iron ore. So I say, how do you want to go about this? Do you want to do it on foot? And do you want to go like radiate out from the settlement? Or do you want to take these canoes and do you want to go down the river? So they decide to go down the river. So I set a percentage in my mind. I give them a 25% chance to see some sort of iron like vein from the water. After that, it's modified on the profession level check of Andromeda, who has the profession geographer. So she kind of knows what to look for. She's not a geologist, so she doesn't have a better chance like a geologist would. But for every number she beats 10, so she rolls a 10 or she rolls a 20-sided dice. She has a modifier based on her intelligence of +3. So you
That's
rolls a
pretty
20
good.
sided dice. Yeah. She rolls a 20-sided dice, adds 3 to it, and takes that result. For every point that she's over 10, she gets to add that percentage point to her
Holy
percent chance to find it.
fuck.
So, yeah. So if he rolls 20, he rolled 20. So he rolled a 17 plus 3 is 20. So you made it by 10%. So you had a 35% chance to find an iron node. Unfortunately, the dice weren't with them that night, and they ended up having to go for 5 days of searching
Oh,
before he made
bro.
before he made a 36% chance. He rolled a 21. They used a nightly reroll to try to jack one up to because they sorry, I forgot to tell them or tell you guys. They were on a time limit. Withers again knows that Nathan's is out there, knows that this land has something on it that's been killing all these settlements. So he says, you have 7 days to look. On the 7th day, you come back. He sent 8 guys with those 4 people, because all 4 characters from the party are there. So they're outnumbered 2 to 1 by guys that are 3 times their level. I point this all out to. I'm like, don't fuck around with these guys. When you heard me say don't fuck around, it was to those guys.
Yep,
So I was
yep.
like,
We've
fuck
already
around
covered
with
when you
these
say
guys.
don't
Yeah.
fuck around, you better goddamn
So I said,
listen.
these guys will kill you. They're like, okay. So 5th day rolls around. I'm like, you finally found some. Go on shore. We rolled a percentage amount. We rolled some dice again to figure out how much iron ore that they find. They find enough that they can make enough nails to cover a medium-sized project. Good enough. So they load the canoe up. As they load the canoe up, they're going to leave shore. They look across and I say, something makes you all look up on the horizon just down the river bend. And then you see it, end to end, lined up. Every predator you can imagine just standing there staring at you. They're about, you figure, 700, 800 feet away from you, far enough that you can make out what they are. Or sorry, close enough you can make out what they are, but far enough away that you could get away. And they just stare at you. They're like, what? Like, yep, they just stare. Now, the players in them automatically think some sort of druid's up to this, and they're right. But again, they're trying to play with their characters. So they're like, okay. So the guards that are with them are freaked out and they're like, we're leaving now. Let's fucking go. So they don't really have any legs to stand on to argue. So they all run to their boats and they take off. On the way back, Andromeda decides to play a few head games with them. Says, you know, we don't have to tell Withers that we ran away like bitches. If you let me look for 2 more days, because in their mind, the 5 days were up. Now these weird animals are coming. He wants to make them stay out there longer
Yeah.
and kind of using that to leverage them. He basically the gist is he wants them to keep those animals a secret so that he can get them to reveal it at a point in time he wants to make the camp uneasy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's scummy, dude.
Yeah, it is. So he's keeping that in. So he does
Bro,
that,
that's fucking scummy.
and they
Sorry, it's like
make
really hitting me.
yeah, and they make that deal with him. So they get back. Withers now has no idea that all these creepy animals were lined up on the shore. So this is one major indication something's up that
Yeah.
Andromeda managed to keep from him. So he's feeling quite proud of himself. And I was like, well, that's well done. So um, now story advances. A couple more things happen story wise. Nothing major that I need to get into. We get to the point where they've now been on there 2.5 weeks. The ship is due pretty soon, and I've introduced the morale scale. So there is a disillusionment column and a morale column. Obviously, one is good and one is bad. I list out for them the things they've done or been around that have caused, and now it's all about everyone else, not them. There's a scale essentially of how angry they are at Withers and how happy they are with Withers. So Withers is now trying to juggle everything. I said, you guys, and these things happened in the morale column, and I listed them out. And I said, these things happened in the disillusionment column. There's another word I'm using it, but I can't remember. Start with a D. Anyway, but the pissed off column. In the pissed off column, I listed those things out too. And they're almost neck and neck right now. So then this party comes along. It said now the morale was getting down because they've been on the island or they've been away from pussy and away from action and away from anything but sitting on a ship or doing physical labor for over a month and a half now. These guys were promised a Port Royale, and what they're getting is backbreaking labor, and these are lazy pirates. They didn't sign up to be laborers. And now they're really regretting killing 5 of the laborers because that means 5 of
Yeah.
them have to do the work now, right? So you got to put yourself now in the crew's mind. They're on an island with no pussy, no booze. Withers keeps the booze locked up in the other pirate ship offshore. Also, he took the settlement boat away and didn't tell the players where it went. I also didn't tell the players where it went because I want that to be a mystery because that is a valuable boat. That's a one of a kind settlement boat. And Andromeda knows how valuable that boat is, and he's holding it somewhere. I'll tell you, it's just downstream a bit, being watched by the other pirate boat. But the
Okay.
point is, they don't know where it is, and you can kind of see the importance of that. So these fucking pirates are now basically turned into physical laborers. This is not what they signed up for. So you got to keep that attitude in mind. So Withers is now trying to balance them. To make them happy every once in a while, he gives them rum. I can't remember how it came about, but Andromeda ends up getting to the point. Oh, that's what she did. I'm sorry, I had to talk about it to remember. He promises them a whorehouse if they don't tell Withers about the animals.
Really?
So, yes, and why wouldn't they, right?
Yeah, that's what
So
I'm saying.
get
Like,
back. They
oh,
talk.
that is
They
so
talk to
easy.
Withers about a whorehouse, and the whorehouse is going to be the next thing they bring along. Now, it wasn't them that came up with the idea for the whorehouse. Withers was always going to do it. He knows the importance of having pussy on the island. He knows the importance of liquor on the island. And the boat that's coming back is bringing both of those things.
Yeah, with
What
booze you
Andromeda did,
get pussy. With pussy you need booze in every
and what
universe.
Yeah, and what Andromeda did was she sweetened the deal to them personally by saying she would get permanent, good whorehouse on the island with good beds, trying to string them along to keep it to themselves. That's how he did it. So now we're nearing the end of the night after all these things have happened, and the final encounter is ready to go. Final encounter is a party. This is where Zver gets to shine. I said, this party's coming up. Is there anything you guys want to do to interfere with it. Now they now know, because to this point in time, right before the party, I'd kept the morale and disillusionment thing a secret because I didn't want them to play the system.
Yeah.
But that only works for so long because then people get lost and they don't know exactly what to do. So you got to kind of tell them about the system so then they realize, oh, there's a way we can mess with this and actually make something happen, like a video game, right? You don't know something's happening in a video game unless there's some sort of on-screen thing usually telling you. So this is my video game way of telling them that they can manipulate this in a real way, and I'll tell them when they get a point and when they lose a point. So they discuss themselves again, about 20 minutes, half hour, and the plan, until Zverg decided to pipe up, was they were going to get them really drunk, or wait until they got drunk, and then reveal the existence of the animals and ruin the party by making them all uneasy about those animals. Pretty good plan, right?
Yeah.
Reveal it when they're drunk, that way they get a little more fearful, and it should wreck the party. And in my mind, yes, I was going to wreck his morale point if they'd have gone with that plan. But Zverg takes it the other way, and he's like, "You think I could find an herb that would make it so that when they drank a little bit, they get totally shit faced?" I was like, "Roll a percentage chance." Roll a percentage chance and made it. I'm like, "Okay, well now you got to find that herb if it's on there." Rolls a 20. I'm like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" He's like, "Cool, I'm gonna spike the punch, or not spike the punch, spike the meal, so that everybody that drinks would take alcohol like it was 5 to 1." I'm like, "Done." So nobody has any reason to suspect him of anything. He's just this creepy herbalist guy that wanders around, and sometimes he puts herbs and stuff. So this time he just switches up the herbs. So the party arrives. I set up the party where Andromeda has the seat of honor with Withers, who is now going to start trying to make his play. In his mind, it's been long enough. Let's fucking get this going. Again,
Yeah.
totally associated from what the reality of the situation should be. So
and,
he
and
gets,
it's and just the dissociation and how it plays seems to just
yeah,
it just seems
so
so like
clueless.
realistic, or just like
He just
that is
doesn't care.
something a human would do,
Yeah.
or
Just
at
doesn't
that
care about her. He's ready to
exactly.
start. Her feelings can be damned.
Yeah.
So she's sitting at the place of honor with him. Everybody's sitting around. Fuck. He had small talk with her, and in the small talk, he basically made his check that he answered all the questions, and he did it in a way that Withers knew that it wasn't the time yet, but he wasn't so insulted that he would take it out on her. Basically, he made that perfect amount of woman massaging a man's ego to
Yeah.
not get herself hit. Just like a woman who gets hit all the time talks to her man in a certain way not to get hit. That's kind of how he works that in. So he makes his check, and Withers makes it through the meal, and that's kind of his encounter for it. Then we get to the point where they want it because we're doing a twofer. They're still going to reveal the existence of the weird animals, but now those guys are going to be super duper shit faced, and then they're going to instigate fights.
Yeah.
So I'm going
Yeah.
to take, yeah, I'm taking 2 morale points away. Not only is it a bad party, it's a fucking awful party with the element of fear on it. So
Yeah. Okay.
that happens. They lose the 2 points, everybody gets shit faced, then they start fighting, half of them are out of commission, and they can't work on the big projects that are coming up, which will demoralize Withers himself. Not a chart, but just saying. And it will be only his fault as far as he knows because he let them drink. Now, what they don't know is Withers is a smart guy, and in my mind, he's going to notice that the only people that didn't get shit faced drunk are those 4 people that have been hanging out together more and more often. For Zverg's backstory as to why he's hanging out with them more and more often, he wants to learn the other languages of the world. He wants to be a
Yeah.
polyglot.
Inquisitive.
He realizes it's cool to be a polyglot. Like knowing a lot of languages is pretty cool. So that's been his excuse. He wants to learn Northlander. So he's been hanging out with the 2 Northlanders. That's how he meets them. And Andromeda, it makes sense for him to hang out with her because they were together beforehand. So now this un these 4 people that were kind of strangers, didn't really know each other, now spend more time together than average. And Withers has put together that they didn't get shit faced drunk and they didn't get any fights. And he could swear he saw them whispering in people's ears. Couldn't see what they were saying, but you know what I'm getting at. So he has suspicion on his mind for those 4 now. So it worked, but it worked too well. Just like real life. Sometimes you can do a little too well. And in this one, they did too well. They lost 2 morale points, but now they have suspicion on their side. They try to sabotage the next party, it'll be harder for them.
Yeah.
or they're going to get found out a lot easier.
See, and then now they have to operate even smarter, but that also boxes people in, and that feeling could cause like slip ups and shit. So it's juicy. It's gonna lead to some crazy fucking everything.
Yeah,
But
man. Well, the
in
morale
like
chart
two
right now is
weeks, you've had so much happen in a new campaign, and not all of it is started yet. If I'm not mistaken, right?
we are technically in game time. We are about 82 days since they left Gadrin's Hammer for the colony. Or no, actually no. 82 days since they arrived at the island shore. So in 82 days, they've circumnavigated, they've investigated all the old settlements, they've had all this crazy drama happen. Now they're at this point. I'm just about done that session too. That happens the next morning. I stress that they really succeeded quite well. I don't tell them about the suspicion. I just say, you guys succeeded so well that most of the guys are out of commission for that entire day. You make no progress. And Withers is so mad that he gives you guys the days off so he can deal with his own men his way. He ends up beating a few of them up and basically just giving them shit.
Yeah.
End of that night comes end of session. This is the
He's a
last thing I
cunt.
say to him before I give them experience points for the night. I say, that night, you hear a scream from the watch right when dusk approaches,
Oh shit.
and you come out front of the settlement to a very familiar sight. Only this time, instead of just the predators lined up as far as the eye can see, you see the predators and the herbivores. So you see squirrels beside wolves, beside deer, beside grizzly bears.
Huh?
All it's a boreal setting. All lined up, all just staring at you about 800 feet away, saying nothing. And that's where I ended it.
Oh, dude, fuck you.
Uh,
That is
so,
good. That is so fucking good, and it's uh, and I like
so
this because it's so good when I re-listen to it when I render this, or what I told you rendering is just making it to
yeah,
YouTube's
I
liking.
see it as conversion. When you say render in your mind,
Conversion,
I hear
yeah,
conversion. I'm old
converting.
school that way.
There we go. I think that's
You're
what it
using the
is.
proper term, just to be
Yeah, we
clear.
both don't even know what the fuck that means or what it does. I know what it I know how it does and what happens after it's done because it means I can go on YouTube with it. You know what I mean? That's what I know. I just don't know what rendering means and I don't know what it does. I don't know if it's useful or not. I just
Well,
know it
when I think
converts shit.
render, I think rendering 3D graphics.
Well, it takes a Sony Vegas file and converts it to MP4 or whatever I chose. That's what it's converting, but
Convert.
it's called they call it rendering in a new format, but it's all it's doing is just converting is what it is. But anyways,
Cool. So yeah, we're all caught up. That was those 2 weeks. As for what's going to happen next time, we go back to settlement.
I feel like you could
The
have added more detail to all that. We could have went go. I bet
Well, I
the
could have went
first.
more in depth.
I was gonna say because this is a nice crisp hour and 2 minutes.
Yeah, I wanted to be succinct because there's no sense drawing it out for stuff that people won't really appreciate unless they're really there. And I don't mean that negative way. I just mean like if you don't know the people involved, there's no sense in me getting into the personalized back and forth that I have with them. And I try to do that with everyone. If anyone
Makes
kind of got the
sense.
shaft that night, it would have been Eldero, who didn't get a whole lot of airtime, I guess you could say, but he had a couple pivotal roles that night for
Yeah, he
spot
went
checks.
mute like 12 minutes in, right?
Yeah,
Unconscious.
really, he doesn't say anything unless he has something to say usually. And in this case, he knows his time's coming because now
Who's the
I
one
gave
I
him
talk
enough
to the
XP.
most?
He is awesome. Well, you have, yeah, he knows a couple people that might listen. But anyway, he was really good about he's good about not like having to be in the spotlight. But at the end of that night, I gave him enough XP to get to level 2 now. So they're all level 2. And this is nice because now I can throw stuff at them for real. It's hard to put level 1s through encounters with anything that doesn't just do 1 or 2 points of damage without putting them seriously at risk. What
Yeah,
I mean
but
by
that's the
that is
fun though.
it is, but you only start with between at the low end 4 hit points and at the high end 12 hit points.
Shit,
There are
12. The most I
swords.
seen was 8.
You can get 12 hit points if you're a barbarian, and that's without con buffs. I realize you get a con buff with a barbarian of up to 16 hit points. But to put it in perspective, there are swords that anyone of any level, even a level 0, who doesn't even count, that'll do a D8 points of damage. So I could kill half the base player characters with one swing of a sword from a guy that doesn't even have a class level. It gets difficult, and then it gets unbelievable. Because if I throw too much at them, then I have to start whiffing stuff. Otherwise, I just knock them all out. What's the fucking point?
Yeah,
What I like about
yeah.
level 2 is I can throw 1-for-1s at all of them. So what I mean by that is when I make encounters, if there's 4 people in the encounter, I try to have 1 monster per person for a normal encounter.
Yeah, I get what you meant.
If they're that type of monster. If it's something I want to be a little harder, or I want a bunch of small things for them to kill so that they feel a little more powerful, getting to wreck a bunch of small
Trash
shit,
mobs.
then I'll double it and it'll be 2-for-1. So there'll be eight bad guys to their 4 good guys and let them go at it. But at level 2, that gets a little iffy. So now at least I can throw 1.5 odds at them. So on a hard encounter for level 2, I could throw 6 things
Oh,
at
you
them.
start getting in
And
halves,
actually,
quarters, and shit. I'm out. I'm not able to follow. I'm just kidding.
okay. No, that's fine. I was
I'm
like,
just
I could
kidding, man.
explain it
You know
again.
I'm gonna follow everything, but you're giving math and you start going to halves. It's like, well, fuck, we're not in math class.
But you gotta think of that stuff
I know
because
we deal in
no,
fractions and
you kill
ratios all the
people by
time. I'm just it's a joke. Bad
yeah,
joke, but I tried.
but people should know that it is something that a DM should consider in my mind. If you're
Always.
just if you're just throwing random amounts of shit at random
Harder
people and
doesn't mean more health or more enemies.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly
I'm just
right.
gonna leave it at
It
that.
could be
That
other
harder
stuff.
doesn't mean more fucking health or enemies.
You want to make something harder? Put it in the dark. Boom, pitch black. Have fun.
Ooh. Oh shit, man. That sounds
Right?
rough.
It could be all level 1s, and that becomes a lot harder, that entire encounter for everyone. Unless that one guy decided to pick blind fighting. Which is an off chance at best.
An off
Although I
chance
like
at best.
well, I recommend blind fighting. If someone's like, I want a feat that might be useful, but when I do want it, it'll be super useful, or when I need it, blind fighting is one of those. Blind fighting works against invisible people. That's helpful.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, it gives you an extra chance at the miss chance they have. So you have a better chance of hitting someone. Also, if someone blinds you, you have a better chance of hitting something as well. It just allows you to re-roll the miss chance. So what
That's pretty
happens
cool.
is, if you swing at something and hit, you roll a percentile dice, which is 1 to 100 number, and if you roll 50% or lower, the attack misses. Straight up. Doesn't matter if you hit or not, it just whiffs.
That's
So that
right.
means
Yeah,
you have a whole
I
bunch
had
of hits,
issues
and make
learning
them all
that.
whiffs. Yeah, lots of people have heard that mechanic, I'm sure.
It is a very common mechanic. It was just it's still new to me, so I'm not gonna follow. Like I'm gonna keep forgetting. But I'm aware that I have memory issues, so I'm gonna try to not forget. But anyways, like, what's okay? So obviously, you're about next week is Tuesday, like your next session. So what's the plan? You have any plans for them next week, or you're just gonna keep going?
Oh, we can talk about other shit. I'm fucking jacked on this Ralph drama, man. I called this shit. Someone 2 weeks ago, I think it was Veritech, was like, man, it's boring.
Trailers for sale or rent, rooms to let 50 cents. No phone, no pool, no pets. I ain't got no cigarettes, but 2 hours of pushing broom buys an 8, 12, 4-bedroom. I'm a man of means by no means, king of the road.